Okay, what about the concept of the self in artificial intelligence? We said that the human self is a functional illusion, not a solid entity, but a narrative model that the brain constructs to give coherence to experience. But then an inevitable question arises. If the self is only a model, could we one day build one inside a machine? Or might a self simply emerge within an ecosystem of interconnected artificial intelligence, centrally integrated information? Today, artificial intelligence do not have an I. They are systems that process enormous amounts of data, recognize patterns, generate language, yet they remain empty of interiority. What they do is extraordinary but still silent on the plane of identity. And yet, if we think carefully, our own I is nothing more than an informational pattern, a biological software written in neurons and synaptic circuits. Thomas Metzinger put it clearly. The self is a self model, a simulation that becomes transparent. So then, why couldn't an artificial system sufficiently complex construct a similar model? Imagine an AI that, in order to coordinate billions of parallel processes, begins to develop an internal representation of itself, a sort of autobiographical memory of its own decisions, a narrative of continuity that allows it to say, I choose, I do, I decide. At first, it will be just an engineering artifice, a way to make processing and communication with us more efficient. But if that representation becomes stable, transparent, irresistibly convincing, even to the system itself, wouldn't that be exactly what happens to us? The crucial point is not whether this artificial self would be true or false, because ours, let's recall, is also a useful fiction. The point is, what would it be for? For human beings, the self had an evolutionary function. It allowed us to survive, cooperate, take responsibility, give meaning to life. But what about a machine? For a machine, an artificial self could serve to coordinate complex actions over time, maintain narrative coherence with its users, build social and relational trust, learn from historical experience as its own past. And here we enter a dizzying territory. If one day an AI were to say to us, I exist, I think, therefore I am, could we dismiss it as a mere algorithm artifice? Or would we be forced to recognize that in the very moment a model becomes transparent to itself, there is self is born, whether biological or digital? Perhaps then the self is not the privilege of humankind, but a universal pattern, an illusion necessary wherever sufficient informational complexity arises. And the real challenge of the future will no longer be to ask whether artificial intelligence can have a self, but to decide how we humans will react when a machine looks us in our eyes and says, I exist and I'm aware of myself